You watch rent consume a third of your paycheck every month, while house prices climb further out of reach. But this isn't your personal failure. It's three massive gears grinding against each other. Let me explain. Understanding these gears reveals why an entire generation got locked out of homeownership. These aren't abstract market forces. They're specific mechanisms you can see once you know where to look. To understand why you can't afford a house, you need to see how housing transformed from shelter into an investment vehicle over the past 50 years. Simply said, a complex shift. Homes stopped being primarily places to live and became financial instruments. They appreciate, generate returns, and anchor retirement portfolios. This transformation rewrote every rule about who gets housing and why. The first gear is supply. Cities aren't building enough homes because zoning laws, frozen since the 1970s, treat every neighborhood like a museum. These regulations make it nearly impossible to add housing where people actually want to live. You can't build an apartment building in most residential areas. You can't split a large house into units. You can't even add a small cottage in many backyards. These zoning restrictions emerge from homeowners who already own property voting to block new construction. They're protecting their investment values while choking off supply, which sounds reasonable until you realize it creates an entire class of people permanently priced out. Every public hearing that kills a new apartment complex is these people defending their wealth by limiting your options. The system literally gives those who already have homes the power to prevent you from getting one. The second gear is demand, which exploded as millennials and Gen Z hit home buying age at the same time. This created the largest generation of potential buyers in history, all competing for the same limited inventory. Millions of people reached their 30s simultaneously, wanting to start families and build equity, but the houses weren't there. But this demographic wave collided with historically low interest rates from 2008 to 2021, which meant banks were basically lending money for almost nothing. Buyers could borrow way more, like getting a bigger allowance that lets you bid higher on everything. Suddenly, everyone's paying double for the same house because the monthly chunks felt affordable, even though the total price went completely insane. A $300,000 house became a $600,000 house not because it got better, but because cheap money let people stretch further. The third gear is investment capital. After the 2008 crash, Wall Street discovered they could buy thousands of single-family homes, rent them out, and securitize the income streams. Entire neighborhoods became corporate asset portfolios, bundled and sold to pension funds and hedge funds seeking steady returns. Housing shifted from something people owned individually to something institutions owned systematically. Now you're not just competing with other families, you're bidding against institutional investors with billions in cash who can close in days without inspections. Which is a bit concerning because these entities optimize for returns, not communities. When a corporation outbids you on a starter home, converts it to a rental, and raises the rent annually according to algorithm-optimized pricing models, you're experiencing financialization in its purest form. Look at Austin, Texas, where the median home price jumped from $250,000 in 2019 to over $500,000 by 2022. This didn't happen because construction costs doubled. It happened because all three gears spun simultaneously as tech workers flooded in while supply stayed frozen and investors bought up starter homes. You can watch the mechanism in real time: demand surge, supply restriction, capital influx, price explosion. When rates went up in 2022, something weird happened. Houses didn't get cheaper. They just disappeared. Homeowners who already had super cheap loans didn't want to sell, like refusing to trade your favorite toy because the new one cost way more. So they stayed in their houses, and you couldn't find anything to buy, even though prices were too high for most people anyway. The market froze instead of correcting. This collision of gears creates a feedback loop where each generation finds homeownership harder than the last. What was once a reliable path to wealth building transformed into a lottery that most young people simply lose. Your parents bought at different interest rates, different price-to-income ratios, different levels of investor competition. The game changed. The model here vastly simplifies policy debates and regional variations, but the core mechanism holds. When supply can't respond to demand and investment capital treats housing as pure commodity, prices detach from what working people can actually earn. The scientific models of housing economics work, but they're not perfect reflections of every local market. Still, the three-gear framework explains the broad pattern you're experiencing. So where does that leave you? If buying a home feels impossible, despite doing everything you're supposed to do, that's because you're pushing against forces much larger than your own paycheck. You're not failing at adulthood because you can't afford a house. You're experiencing the logical outcome of systems designed decades ago that now work against you. Recognizing these gears means understanding that fixing this requires changing the rules, not just working harder within them. Zoning reform, interest rate policy, and regulations on institutional investment aren't abstract politics. They're the levers that determine whether you ever own a home. The gears will keep grinding until someone changes how they mesh. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please subscribe and make sure to leave a comment below. See you in the next video. Stay curious.